All right. My name is Emily Muniz, and I am the transfer counselor in the counseling office. Today we're going to be talking about transfer. This is going to be a pretty general overview, so if you have questions, please let me know. And so we'll get started. So are both of you planning on transferring? Okay. Do you already know where and what? Okay, very good. Well, you've already tackled some things I'm going to talk about. But basically, start early. That's one thing I always tell students is start early. I may see a high school student and I will ask them, are you planning on transferring? They may not have even thought about that yet, but it's very important that when a student is meeting with a counselor that we're talking about the exact classes they need for transfer as well as their degree here. Hello. So starting early means thinking about what your transfer goals are, where you want to transfer, what major you want to pursue when you transfer. And that's all it is. Start thinking about it. It doesn't mean you need to do anything yet, but you need to have it in the back of your mind that that's your goal. Do your research. So once you have thought about where and what you want to do, start looking at different schools that have the program you're interested in. See what classes are required for that plan. Also, collaborate with the counselor. So if you have some ideas, you want to run them by someone, come to the counseling office and talk to one of us, and we'll help you say, yes, this is correct, or maybe we need to, look at something else. Another thing, what you should do, no matter what your goals are, is get good grades. That's everyone's goal is to get good grades, I'm sure. But when it comes to transfer, you have to have a C or better for that to transfer to the four-year school. So it's important to make sure you're keeping those grades up. If you're not doing well in a class, you may need to withdraw, or talk to your instructor, something to avoid getting, F's or D's if you can do that. And lastly, have a plan B. So sometimes, your top school, the choice may not work out, or the program that you thought you want to pursue may not be a good fit for you. So it's always good to have another plan in the back of your mind as well, so that it's not going to be so hard on you when you don't meet that plan A. Any questions about that part? No? Okay. Okay, so another important thing to remember is we have two different types of programs. We have plans that are designed for transfer and applied degrees. So our transfer programs are the ones listed here. So business administration, education, engineering, and I'll come back to that. General studies, liberal arts, and then science. The engineering, we have actually 3 engineering programs here, but only one of those is designed for transfer. The other 2 are applied degrees, which means you're not getting as many general education classes. It's not quite as intense with the math, chemistry, and physics as the transfer one is, because when you go to the four-year school for engineering, you need to have all of those classes. You need to have that foundation. General Studies is a transfer program, but it's not part of the Guaranteed Admission Agreement. So have you all heard about the Guaranteed Admissions Agreements? You're familiar with that? For CBCC, our General Studies plan has not been approved by SHEV yet, which means you can transfer with that, but it's not part of the guarantee. Liberal Arts has a foreign language requirement, and that's really the main difference between the Liberal Arts and General Studies. General Studies has a literature requirement instead. But a lot of four-year schools want you to have a foreign language, so that may be the route that you go for that. And then science, that's a really good program if you're wanting to major in biology or do pre-med or anything like that. Do you guys have any questions about that part? So if you're in transfer, are you all in one of these programs? Yeah. Very good. Okay, so a lot of students when they come in, they ask me, well, should I get my associate's degree? It's not really a yes or no answer. It varies depending on where you're transferring. We would like for you to get your associate's degree here, but if that's not in your best interest to finish it first, then you need to do what's best for you. So that answer depends on your goals. Completing your degree can make you more valuable when you're applying to a four-year school. They see that you finished something. Sometimes it makes the actual transfer a little bit easier because you've already completed the associate's degree. Some schools will say, okay, all of your general education requirements are met with that. Again, that depends on the school and the program that you're applying to, and so that's why you want to collaborate with the counselor to make sure that that is what the case is for each school, or for the school that you're transferring to. Again, this varies depending on what your transfer goals are. So I have an example of this. For Lynchburg College, if you're thinking of doing the nursing program, they actually prefer students to apply for that early. They don't want you to get your associate's degree necessarily because they have their nursing students start the nursing classes as sophomores. So they have a list of prereqs they would like for you to have, but then they recommend you transfer after that. Because if you get your associate's degree, it might actually take you longer to finish their nursing program. So that's just one example. There's others out there like that. And it won't hurt you to have the associate's degree if that's your goal, to be a nurse at Lynchburg College. But again, it can just take a little bit longer. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, and you all said you were familiar with the guaranteed admissions agreements. Have you looked at the schools that you're thinking, and are you trying to pursue those? Okay, well, for the video, I'm going to go over what they are. But basically, the guaranteed admission agreement is going to be getting the associate degree, the correct one, so unfortunately not general studies, but any of those other ones, as well as the minimum GPA requirement for each school. Some schools have more requirements. Those are the main two, is the associates and the GPA. I know UVA, they want you to have all A's and B's in your classes. Some schools, they won't accept, anything lower than that. And so the agreements, you just have to read through those with a fine-tooth comb to make sure that you're meeting all of those stipulations. If one of those requirements isn't met, you may not qualify for the guarantee, but that doesn't mean you can't transfer. It just means you may not get that guaranteed admission agreement when you transfer. It may also be, especially with larger schools, you may get into the university, so UVA is an example, but you might not get into your field of study. That might be an additional application process, but you would be accepted to UVA. So I'm just going to show you all how to get there if you aren't sure about that. Oh, just kidding. Okay. So on our home page, if you hover over the Academics tab and then Transfer Information, this has links to all kinds of different transfer info, but we're going to click on the VCCS Guaranteed Admission Agreements. And so this is for all Virginia community colleges. And they list them by public colleges and universities, and then by private. But basically, if you know what school you want to go to, you just click read it, and it'll bring up the PDF version of the agreement. Some schools have specific ones for specific programs. So like UVA for engineering, that has a specific one that's separate from their nursing or just UVA in general. And so they're saying that you need at least a 3.4 or higher on a 4.0 scale. It talks about if you've taken AP credit, any sort of CLEP, anything like that, all of those come into play, whether they will accept that or not. So, those are things to definitely read through that. So it says C or better in every VCCS course taken, with the exception of the following. They want a B or higher in your English, all of your math, physics, and chemistry courses, and that's just for engineering. But a lot of these have, stipulations like that. So those are things that you want to be mindful of, and just make sure you're reading all of that carefully. All right, any questions about that part? Okay, so another thing I wanted to address today, a lot of students come in and they say, oh, I just want to get my gen ed classes. Well, what does that mean when a student says that? They're thinking, I just want to do my math, my English, and then transfer. That's good in theory, but every school is going to want a different math class or history class depending on where you're transferring and what you're transferring into. So even though you may say, oh, I'm just going to take math and English, that math class may not transfer in the same way to every school that you go to. And that's very important. Math is the biggest one that I think students need to be aware of. Some schools may want liberal arts math. Some schools may want pre-calculus. Depends on your program and what they offer. And then their courses, if they have an equivalent to that. There's a lot of things to keep in mind when you're thinking of general education classes. And so again, it's important to have a plan, know what you need for where you're going. So what I do when I meet with students, based on where they want to transfer and what they want to transfer into, I will go to that school's website and pull up a curriculum sheet or an advising sheet. That shows us, what the general education requirements are for that school. And we make sure that they are taking the classes to also meet that school's goal, as well as here with your associate's degree. So important things to remember. This is particularly important for new students, but college planning is not like high school. I hear a lot of students say, well, my guidance counselor just told me what to take. We don't do that here. It'd be nice, but you are responsible for your degree and your future here. But we're here to help you meet those goals and get there. But we don't do it for you. We will help you again, but the responsibility is on you. So you're going to work with a counselor at CVCC. And I definitely recommend that. Even if you think you know what you're doing, it doesn't hurt to just say, hey, does this make sense? Do you think this will work? Just to make sure you're on the right track. Also, working with a counselor at CVCC, I also recommend that you meet with someone at your transfer school. They're the ones that are going to be accepting you. So you want to make sure that you're doing everything that's going to meet your requirements on their end as well. And it doesn't hurt to do that early. The earlier you know where you're going and what you want to do, you can start reaching out to someone and having that plan laid out for you. So knowing what needs to be done, the deadlines for doing it. I try to let students know deadlines for various schools for applying, but that's something that you should stay on top of as well. And just knowing those deadlines, making sure you're meeting those deadlines. And another important thing is to remember anyone can transfer, even if you're in an applied degree. Those degrees aren't designed for transfer, but that doesn't mean that you can't. It just means that you may have to meet some general education requirements when you do transfer that you didn't meet here. And so basically the school may cherry pick your courses. So any courses that you had taken that apply to that degree, you could have had those met with your classes here. But another example, there's two schools in particular that may accept an applied degree for transfer. And that is ODU and Bellevue University. So the ODU Distance Ed office, we have a site here on campus for the engineering, one of their applied engineering degrees that we have. They will accept that for transfer into their engineering program. So that's an example of that. Bellevue University will accept any of our associate's degree for transfer. Bellevue is also an online distance ed school. They have a lot of programs, but with that associates, they waive all of your general education requirements. And some schools do that. And so, again, just look into each school that you're thinking of and what they accept. Any questions about that part? No? Okay. Okay, a little bit more about some just important things to remember. And I think I've stressed this a little bit already, but every four-year school is different. If you all have done some research already, you probably already found that out. Some schools, again with the math, they want a different math than another school. I've even found some examples for history. They want a different history. I had a student a few summers ago. She was debating between JMU and Radford. Radford wanted Western civilization, JMU wanted U.S. history. So she had to decide, before she took that class, which one she wanted to take to make sure she was meeting her ultimate transfer school's goal. So that makes it a little bit difficult when you're thinking of a couple schools, because you may run into that. And again, so the next bullet point, the more schools you're considering, the more difficult it can become to choose the right classes. So trying to think about these things early on makes that selection in the courses that you need here a little bit easier. And again, do as much research as possible. Sometimes that can take a while, but go to each school you're thinking of, research the program that you're interested in and their gen ed requirements. If they, for education, some schools want you to have the praxis before you transfer, making sure you've done that. There's a lot of little things like that I think go unnoticed. And so it's important to remember that when you transfer, it's not something that happens at the end when you're done. This is the process that needs to be going on, your entire time you're here. And meet with me, meet with a counselor, because we'll help you with that research process. And if there's a specific question that I can't answer, I'll reach out to someone at that four-year school and ask them for clarification. I have to do that often because sometimes it's just not evident on the website. So, and keep in mind that there are resources to you here. We have lots of services and resources available to you. The Tools for Success page that gives you different tips on how to be a successful student, so time management, study skills, things that you may have talked about in your SDV classes. The transfer information page that I showed you that has the guaranteed admissions agreements. There's also a link to another page that has a lot of schools in Virginia and different resources on their page. So that's kind of the hub where you can kind of branch out and look at all of these different schools and what they offer. Another really important one is the Virginia Education Wizard. Has anyone checked that out? Really good tool. That can help you if you're not sure what you want to do, help you take some assessments, some interest inventories, and see what field might be a good fit for you based on your skills and your goals and your interests. You can also look for scholarships. So that's another important part when you're thinking of transfer is how are you going to pay for college? You're going to get loans. If you don't want to take out a loan, okay, maybe you need to apply for different scholarships and grants and see what you're eligible for. And so this tool can help you do that. It's a really, really good resource that you should definitely become familiar with. So, in summary, do your research. That's the most important thing. Research, research, research. Plan ahead. Collaborate. So bounce your ideas off of a counselor. Talk to friends and family. Talk to someone at the four-year school that you're interested in. And again, have a plan B. Sometimes our plan A's don't always work out. And so it's a little less abrupt when that happens if you have a plan B. Okay? Any questions? Okay. Well, there's my info. Like I said, I'm just down in the counseling center. This is, again, just an overview. If you have specific questions, we can discuss those. There's my email and phone number, but stop by or call anytime. That's going to conclude the presentation part, so I'm going to turn this off. And then if you guys want to talk a little bit more, we can.